such as acting out aggressively, becoming unusually fearful, or even becoming non-compliant, can indicate mistreatment.
The person may be afraid to go home or afraid to live at home. The child may be afraid to change clothes for gym activities, may be intimidated to hide injuries.
Victims of abuse often appear fearful of others.
Accidents can happen to anyone, so how can you distinguish between an accidental injury and an injury caused by abuse? When observing an injury that might be the result of abuse, consider these factors. First, the location of the injury. Certain locations on the body are more likely to sustain accidental injuries, including the knees, elbows, shins, and forehead. Protected body parts and soft tissue areas, such as the back, thigh, genital area, buttocks, back of legs, and face, are less likely to accidentally come into contact with objects that could cause injury. Second is the number and frequency of injuries. The greater the number of injuries, the greater the cause for concern. Multiple injuries in different stages of healing are also a strong indicator of chronic abuse. Third is the size and shape of the injury. Accidental marks resulting from bumps and falls usually have no clearly defined shape. As well, the description of how the injury occurred is an indication. When the description of how the injury occurred and the appearance of the injury are inconsistent, there is cause for concern. Finally, the consistency of injury with the person's developmental capability. As children grow and gain new skills, their ability to engage in activities that can cause injury increases. A toddler trying to run is likely to suffer bruised knees and a bump on the head. Toddlers are less likely to suffer a broken arm than an 8-year-old who has discovered the joy of climbing trees.
Well, body language is a good cue to look for somebody who can't talk. They'll be moving their arms, like if they're pointing to the mouth, that could mean they're hungry, or if they're going around the waist, maybe their belt is on too tight, or maybe they have something around the waist they don't like. And if they're limping, that means obviously, unless they're limp like me, but one of their legs is bad or something. And body language is a big key to working with the handicap, and I've noticed that throughout the years.
The written information that is included with this training DVD includes a comprehensive list of abuse indicators. Please review this information to become aware of other signs that may indicate that a vulnerable person has been subjected to abuse.
They shouldn't be abusive to us clients or other people out in the community. Sometimes if people have problems, they should go talk to their case managers, or you should go try to help your friend out the detriment they are in.
Okay. All providers are required to report incidents of abuse, neglect, and exploitation, as well as other critical incidents, on the Division's Notification of Incident form immediately after assuring the health and safety of the person and other individuals involved. This form can be found at the Division's website. More information on incident reporting can be found in Chapter 45, Section 30 of the Wyoming Medicaid Rules at the DDD website, and on the Division's training DVD on incident reporting. Thank you for your time and attention to this very important information we've discussed today.
You can make a difference.
Hi, my name is Joshua Gartrell. I'm a Program Integrity staff with the Developmental Disabilities Division. Welcome to the Developmental Disabilities Division training on notification of incident reporting. First of all, we want to go through all of the different components that are straightforward from the rule, and also try to cover some of the things that may cause some confusion along the way. First of all, who must report incidents to the division? All providers certified by the Developmental Disabilities Division are required to report incidents. Also, any staff person that is employed by one of these waiver providers is required to report. The requirements of reporting is a duty to report by law. It is in Wyoming State statute. It is also included in our rules in Chapter 45, Section 30. Also, CARF organizations have that requirement if you're accredited CARF organization. Lastly, CMS have requirements for the quality framework. The Adult Protective Service Act and the Child Protective Service Act are very similar in their language. Let me read the APS Act from Wyoming Statute, Section 35. Any person or agency who knows or has reasonable cause to believe that a vulnerable adult is being or has been abused, neglected, exploited, abandoned, or is committing self-neglect shall report the information immediately to a law enforcement agency or the Department of Family Services. CMS also has requirements according to their quality framework. They have desired outcomes, that participants are safe and secure in their homes and communities. The state of Wyoming, on an ongoing basis, will also seek to identify and address instances of abuse, neglect, and exploitation. The CARF requirement is found in Section 1E, and this is applicable for all those CARF accredited. The organization must have written procedures regarding critical incidents that include abuse and neglect. The leadership of the CARF organization also must annually have a written analysis that addresses the cause, trend, and prevention of occurrences. When are you required to report? Per the waiver rule, Chapter 45, reports shall be made immediately after assuring the health and safety of the participant and other individuals. The spirit of this rule is that you would first take care of the health and safety needs immediately aroused by that incident and all other participants that are involved. This should be reported, generally speaking, by the end of the business day or within 24 hours, but is immediately as soon as they are safe. How to report. The division has created a website that is secure that we ask that all providers and staff report on. You can look at the screen and find the web address, and it is located at the University of Wyoming. This online submission is something that we request that you do for a number of reasons. First, it is immediate. That report is immediately entered into a database live, and we are, as Program Integrity, immediately notified of all incidents. Someone at the Cheyenne site will ensure that all of the incidents are being reviewed by all field staff. This also avoids any fax that could be sent to Cheyenne if someone is traveling on the road or being put in the wrong person's box. And an incident, a very critical incident, could be neglected to be reviewed or notified through faxing. Also, as you know, different staffs with different cursive handwriting styles, after being faxed, that transmission could be very difficult to read, and errors could be made after reading a poorly written or illegible fax. Lastly, you must immediately have verification with an incident report through the tracking of an incident number. When you report online, you are immediately notified that you have successfully notified the division through an incident number that you have received. It is important to keep track of that number, and the next prompt of that screen will ask you if you would like to keep a copy for your own records. Program Integrity strongly encourages you to not only notify us through that same form, but also use that same form in notifying DFS, P&A, and other agencies as applicable. So that ensures that all agencies are being given the same information in the same manner. Finally, the database in which the incidents are tracked is something that the division will continue to monitor and improve on through our own tracking and analysis through quality assurance. The database submission has been updated through the latest security through the wind at the University of Wyoming. We just covered why you should report online, but if you do not have access to the internet, or for some reason the website is down, or you're having problems with your internet connection, you still can submit an incident by a fax. You need to use the approved DDD form, which you need to obtain a copy of, and fax that incident to the division at the number above. However, the best practice is to make sure and confirm that that fax went through, and one of your local staff program integrity persons can confirm that they've received that fax and the content of the information. Next, let's move on to the categories. What type of incidents do we require as the division to report to us? First of all is suspected abuse, suspected neglect, suspected exploitation, suspected abandonment, suspected self-neglect, police involvement, injury caused by restraint, serious injury, elopement, and death. Let's go over a couple of the things that confuse people. First of all, suspected abuse, neglect, exploitation, abandonment, or self-neglect. We especially want to emphasize that you should not be investigating the veracity of the truth or the allegation of these things. If it is a suspicion, or a participant voices that concern, or a family member, another provider, has a suspicion that these things have occurred, it is not your job as a provider to go out and confirm and factualize whether or not these events have taken place. Your first duty is to report. Let the appropriate jurisdiction and the appropriate state agency follow through with the investigation as they are allowed to do so. Secondly is police involvement. That also causes some confusion, as any time a participant has an interaction with a police officer or any law enforcement, you have a duty to let the division know. This includes police coming to a home, a group home, a private residence, out in the community, during a car accident, etc. Any type of interaction with a law enforcement, as it includes their official duties. Now, if they have a relative that happens to be a police officer. Lastly is serious injuries. This is the one that gets most confused, is any time a person has an injury that requires medical treatment from someone such as a doctor, a nurse, emergency room, you are required to notify the division. Lastly is the death information. Anytime a participant dies that is participating in the waiver, we require additional information. Some of that information is found on the web page when you submit your incident is a separate secondary pop-up window. If you are, again, not able to submit that information immediately at the time because you need to research and find some of the information as far as medical history, medications, etc., it is okay to notify the division subsequent after you have that information. Also, we do require a copy of the death certificate. We do realize that that does take time to obtain, and we want to be sensitive to families and staff that are going through a grief and a grieving process. We do want to allow you to have adequate time to obtain all this additional death information, but at some point it is required because we do have a biannual mortality review committee. This is chaired by the division, but has many members from different agencies reviewing deaths that occur on the waiver. Lastly, which agencies are you required to report to? First is the Developmental Disabilities Division. This is our rule according to Chapter 45, Section 30, and this process is outlined according to our rules. Secondly is DFS. They have a statutory right to be notified with cases of abuse and neglect, etc. Next is Protection and Advocacy. They're an agency that is a federally mandated agency that looks into things from a law enforcement and a legal standpoint, and they need to be notified as well. Next is your case manager. Every participant has a case manager, and every case manager needs to be notified of every incident. Some participants have guardians, some do not. If it applies, the guardian needs to be notified. Lastly, it is appropriate at times to get law enforcement involved in certain cases of abuse, neglect, crimes being committed, sexual abuse, etc. Use your professional judgment and common sense, and coordinate with your local DFS office if you have questions about law enforcement needing to be involved. Of course, the division primarily is going to be focused on health and safety concerns. The focus is on assuring that appropriate and adequate services and supports are in place. Does this incident bring out new concerns that are not already addressed in the IPC or the behavior plan? Does someone start to exhibit new behaviors, aggressive behaviors, attacking persons or staff? Are there new elopement issues? Are there staffing ratios and staffing supports that need to be addressed? Also, does this incident correctly identify potential health and safety new issues such as a new seizure that has never occurred before, new mobility issues? The main question is the health and safety being assured, and how is the person doing today and following the incident? A second issue is, was the incident filed within the required time frames? The requirement is that the incident must be filed as soon as health and safety has been assured. If it has been determined that a reportable incident occurred but was not reported within this time frame, we will notify you and inform you of that requirement. We also will ask you, if you know ahead of time that you're not able to submit an IR, to let us know what is going